Flutes of Chi. This was requested by Jayden Rossi. Thank you once again for another great request off another great album, White Pepper. This is Ween. This is just great stuff. So we'll go over a couple different parts. Well, the rhythm to this is pretty dead simple. It's just a couple chords, and we'll go over that first. There's also some lead lines. There's a really simple, clean solo, and then there's a more distorted one which is not really played live because it's definitely more of an improvised sort of studio texture thing. We'll get to that, but yeah. So the main part, what's basically the rhythm going on under the riff, is this. Gets into the verse, so that's pretty much just you're going to be having the open D, open G, and open B strings, right? And you're going to not have the A. So you could do this two ways. You could just have strum from the D string down and have you're fretting the high E string and moving it around, or you could do what he might be doing. You see he's got his thumb up here when he's doing it live. On the studio, you can't really tell, but he could, and you could. I tend to find myself doing this. You have your thumb on the same fret as the high string, just on the low E string, and mute the A string and just strum the whole thing, right? So. You don't have to, it's not really a requirement. But anyway, so start off, I'll just say the fret, that you're moving on to, and keep in mind you're keeping these strings open throughout. So 7th fret, and then 5th fret, up to 12, then down to 10, back to 12, back to 10, then down to 2nd, then an E minor chord. And it's really, you just hear the top 4 strings there from the D string down, so you could just fret that like that. I personally tend to fret the whole thing just in case I hit some off notes there. Although you could technically have the open A string in there because the melody during that part is an A note, so it's like, Anyway. Then the sort of chords during the verse are dead simple. Just a couple open chords. Just G major. Everything that you did, that you in A minor, will come in D, my friend. G's that mean every D. The flutes of A minor will sound a D, my friend. And then there's just the riff over that again. And during the clean solo, that's just the verse chords underneath that. Right, and then the sort of distorted thing after that is just alternates between E minor and D, right? So it just does that 4 times. And then you're into the verse. Everything. And so on and so forth. And then they do the riff technically 2 more times, and then, and it ends sort of like this. Just ends on a classic old G chord. So the lead, the guitar that's playing that riff, because when they do this live, they don't really do that. Aside from, they just have that rhythm. The guitar is just doing that. Right? But there's a distorted guitar following along with the riff when they do it live, and it's really cool. It's like this. It's actually kind of tricky to play. So you're sliding up here on the D string, 9 to 7. Then you're sliding up on the G string, same fret. Same timing and phrasing, everything actually. Then you hit 9. So what I hear on the record is he's basically doing this. Right? So it's he hits the 9, and then he doesn't hit again. He basically, it's the timing's a little tricky, but if you listen for it, you can sort of, you're gonna have to sort of get used to it. So it's a little pull off and then hammer on, and then pluck and pull off, right? So like that, because I think that sort of gets the appropriate amount of volume on that. It's just this quick little flutter, right? It's not so much a loud. That's not quite what he's doing. You could do that and it sounds pretty cool, but I think it sounds more accurate like on the record if it's just. Right? And then you slide down. And that's another tough thing to get to. Right? So end up here after you slide down. Wind up here on the 4th of the D. You could just hammer on, or you could pluck right before you get that. So that's 4, 5, 4 again, and then 7 on the A. And then he slides up from the 5th to the 7 on the D. And that's the riff. And then he loops it again. And the second time he just hits that note. And sort of slides down after he holds it a little bit. And then there's the there's the solo, right? And there's the first one, which is really clean and just super dead simple. It's just climbing up and down scale. It's got a really cool sound to it. And that one's. So this, you could definitely, I would actually prefer playing this, especially if I was playing this live. I would play it in the open position, which means you would use the D string. Which is basically just, on the record, the reason I play it like that is because it sounds like on the record, it sounds more like it if you just play it on the A string. So. And then climbing up here. But I would definitely play this. Like that if I was playing this live, just because, you know, it's not, it's kind of embarrassing when you like mess that part up, so it's just easier to play it in that open position where you don't have to move your fingers as much. But so you're starting off on the G note, 3rd fret of the low E. Right, so hit it twice. 2, 3, 5 on the A. Then hit 5 again. Then 3, 2 open. Then open. 2, 3, 5. Then, right, so 5, 7, 9, 10. Climb back down. End it with a low open E right after you get the right. So And if you were just playing this in the open position, you would just replace these top notes here with on the D string on the 2nd, 4th, and 5th frets. Right? So after that is a distorted solo. Now, I would not consider this a super precise part. It's definitely sort of a studio thing. It's double tracked, which gives it that, it's really sort of a 70s thing, but I always think of Tony Iommi, Black Sabbath sort of sound, where you double tracking 2 different solos and they kind of overlap with each other, but they're not a precise, they're not the same part. So it's cool. And it's not really a precise part, but there's a couple licks in there that he sort of does, which I think are real cool. So the timing of it is interesting. So it starts off with the clean thing. He's kind of going into that. Like, it doesn't start as soon as the clean thing is done. It starts towards the end of it, right? So, sort of like... so we're in just G major. But he's really borrowing a lot from the E minor, because we're playing over... the chords he's playing over is E minor and D. But, so you could... so you're going to start off on the 15 there with some vibrato. And then he bends up. And he climbs down there. Little flutter on the 12 to 15 of the B. Then we go on the G string, 14, 12. Again, it's not a super precise pattern, but this is just like the scale notes that you want to focus on. Right, so again, none of that was precise, but it's in that world. So there's going to be a lot of that's one of the coolest parts of the solo. Again, these are sort of landmark licks that are ones that you want to focus on if you want to replicate the sound of it. But the whole trying to be precise with it's kind of antithetical to it. It's just sort of a feel thing. He's going to climb up. So that lick right there is cool. So he's going to bend up there on the G string, just a half step bend on that 14 of the G. And then hit the 12 of the B. And he's going to hit that E note on the 14 of the D. So, and then, sounds like a pre-bend to me. So 12, 11, and then pre-bend a whole step on the G string 12. And bend it down. Right? So that's a cool little chromatic lick. So yeah, from there, there's not a whole lot of like not a whole lot of identifiable licks there, just kind of messing around, but the way he ends the solo is really cool. So he's basically, he does some sort of lick at the top there. He never really gets higher than the bending up on that note. He never gets on the high E string or anything. So does some sort of lick here. You're gonna start on the 12 of the G. So any sort of lick here on the 12 and 14 of the D and A strings. And he's going to end up on the 12 or even 14 of the A string, either of those, and then the D note on the 12th fret of the D, and then the 11 on the G, which just sort of perfectly ends it and leads it into the G chord, which is the next thing. So any sort of ending like that will do. And when the song ends, you can hear the lead guitar after it hits the final G chord. I think it's basically the sound of like an open G note, open G string, and the octave higher, probably here on the B string there, 8th fret. And it just rings out from there. That's basically it. Super great song, simple song. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.